We've got a separate office from that, but it's jam-packed with stuff that's been there for a year just because we don't have the ability to install it on a project.
No, I definitely get it. I'm familiar with those
So,
scenarios, and I think maybe, at least for me, the only heartburn I have is that with it being such a large facility is two things. One, deliveries. Until that road's in, that flag lot, that road's inconvenient in size. It's doable, I'm sure,
Yeah,
if
it's
Ed's
doable.
saying it's doable.
Mhm.
And two is that there would be no future leasing or subletting a different multiple. That's the thing, is if it's so big, I would hope the intention isn't that you're going to split it down the middle eventually and sublet.
Honestly, our intention is to expand within the building. So
Okay.
right now, we've got about 5,000 square feet of office. And once we build that 5,000 square feet and move into it, we're full.
Mm-hmm.
And so my plan for the company is to grow it. And so we're going to take up to about 10,000 square feet of that building and have it be a project management office.
Okay.
And the rest, obviously, right now that building's much larger than we need. Right
Mhm.
now, we're able to house everything in about 20,000 square feet between 4 different buildings. So, I mean, we're giving ourselves plenty of room to expand, is what that is.
With that 10,000 square feet, how many employees do you envision?
So right now, we have within the office 10 full-time and then 2 that are kind of in and out. I would anticipate that turns into roughly 20 employees that are full-time in that office.
And then you obviously have the journeymen that are going to be out.
Yeah, they'll come and they park their vehicles there and we shuttle them to different job sites on a daily basis. So there's more parking there than we need by a long shot, but that's what it's for. It's for electricians to jump in a 12-passenger van and run to a job site down in Salt Lake or wherever it is.
Yep.
I have a question maybe for Alec and Amy, but when a business, let's say he were to vacate that building at some point, maybe even sell it, or just decide to lease it, another business comes in, they have to get a business license and they have to state their use
Yes.
as well, right? So
Yes.
if we give him this use, that doesn't mean that someone else with a different business has those same privileges, correct? They'd still have to come in and select a use under one of these commercial zones, and then it'd have
Yeah.
to be approved.
Yeah, it would be anything that's permitted or conditioned under C2,
Okay.
whatever would fit into that. As of right now, it does say in the code that if there's nothing that it can fall under, it goes to city manager and designee. And if not, it can always come back to you guys too for the land use designation.
So I know that when we did this ordinance, we were trying to think of all the uses that people could have when they came in, and ones that we didn't want, ones that maybe we wanted. In my opinion, I feel like this is one of those cases and one of those uses where it might have been overlooked. In the warehousing, under warehousing as a use, I think that's different. I think that's when you have, semis coming in, delivering stuff, regular distribution where you get, 12 semis in dock doors coming in at 3 a.m. with all their beeping and all their noises, and you have all that traffic. I think this is different with a service-oriented business where you're storing stuff for your trade specifically. You're not selling it to anyone. You don't even have a client-facing operation for someone to come in and buy equipment, it looks like. In my opinion, I feel like this was just one of those uses that may have been overlooked in this zone that may comply.
But I think that what you're just saying about, that they don't have people coming to buy, I don't think that really fits under a sales and service. That's kind of, that's been the problem that Alec and I've had with discussing where this belongs. One, they characterized it as a warehouse in their email, which does not fit in a C2, and it's a 30,000 square foot building. And because it's sales and service, they don't, because the one that is permitted, electrical and heating appliances and fixtures, sales and service, there isn't, it's not a retail shop. They're not, people aren't coming, and they are gonna be getting deliveries for their, you know,
Well, they will be,
Zoning
but
specifically say it needs to be retail?
what was that?
Does that zoning specifically say it needs to be retail?
It says sales and service.
Well, I mean, we sell light fixtures and service electrical systems on buildings all day, every day. We sell electrical gear. I mean, I agree that we don't fit in a nice, clean little box, and it makes it gray, to be honest. But from my standpoint, contractors are great partners to have within your city. If you look at all the signs up at your West Haven Days rodeo or anything like that, a vast majority of them are contractors. From a general standpoint, contractors are very willing to be good partners to cities, and it shows. I mean, we are a very, very low-key neighbor, but we bring a lot of value. We actually do all of West Haven City's electrical work, believe it or not.
I have a couple of questions.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate
Yeah.
what you're saying, because I agree with you that they bring in money and they support the city. You've got a lot of doors here for
Yeah.
trucks. What kind of hours of operation are the
So-
neighbors going to be seeing?
So our hours of operation are 6 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday. We work a 4-10 schedule, much like West Haven City does. The overhead doors, there's like 6 along the back. We have a line truck, it's an auger truck. We have a crane, and we got a couple other big trucks. I mean, there's no semis, no dump trucks, no nothing, but we have a couple other pickups that we'd like to, like 5,500 type pickups that we'd like to store inside. And it's just to
They
keep them
won't
out.
be operating after 4 o'clock, is what you're telling me.
And they won't be operating on that site. The only thing that they would do would be drive out and go to a different job site. We don't use our equipment on our site.
And how much traffic can we expect all day long during those 4 days of big trucks?
So if we're talking like deliveries, we usually get, on average, 1 semi will come in a day to drop off, like I said, light fixtures, electrical gear, that kind of thing. Employees, and most of our employees will leave once and come back
No,
once.
I understand that, but I'm looking at an awful lot of doors here for large trucks.
Those trucks are only used every once in a while. Like, those are not our daily use vehicles.
So my actual question is, why so many of these large truck delivery doors if you're only having?
So those are, you might be looking at it wrong. Those are ground level garage doors to back a truck in.
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
Those aren't
Those
delivery
aren't
doors
deliveries.
or
Those are just bays that I can back a truck in and park it right there in front of the door.
Thank you.
There's only one that's an actual dock.
Okay, I just needed that
Okay,
clarified.
perfect.
Thank you.
So I have a question that might be a little bit administrative.
Okay.
This handout that you gave us,
Yeah.
where did this come from?
Between myself and Geneva, we did a lot of research. Like on all the list of contractors.
The list of questions 1 through 6.
The questions came from Alika. She asked us to answer those questions, and so those are our responses to those questions.
Okay.
The list of contractors was simply either driving around or taking your map of C2 zoning and looking at all the different contractors that are in the area. And that's just,
Okay, but the questions came from Malika, and they're in black, and the
yes,
answers.
answers are in red. That's our wording. Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Yep.
Are you guys feeling like we need more discussion, or would you feel like we'd like to do a little more research, or feeling? I can sense a little
I think there was,
ambivalence, I guess.
in I don't know, in my opinion, and I'm not privy to all the communications that you guys have had with the city, but it sounds like you used the word warehouse, and that was what sparked concern from the attorney and the city. I see it more as what you've now titled it as the headquarters, and knowing what your intentions are with this. Yes, it is a warehouse, but you also have staff that's going to be occupying this. I don't see it as far as a sales and service. I definitely feel like you're a service,
Oh, definitely.
fall under that service line in that zoning. I personally don't have any heartburn over the C2 being allowed. So
Would this be something we'd want to table and have further discussion, or how are you guys feeling?
I was hoping we were going to turn out last comment into a motion.
I can do that. I'd be more than happy. I motion to give how would I word this? To give approval for LWE
Yeah.
to.
Sorry, yeah.
Right?
You can, yeah. You can
Do I
that.
have to say the whole name or just?
No, you can just say that and use the parcel numbers just to be
Okay.
exact on that.
Okay. All right. So I motion to give LWE approval on parcel number 150710001 and 150710030 to occupy as commercial commercial C2 for their headquarters.
Actually, can you add on what designation in the C2, just so that it's part of the motion? What their
Yes.
use is going to be?
Sorry, Robin, I'll start this again. I make a motion to give approval to LWE to occupy commercial C2 space as an electrical heating appliance and fixture sales and service on parcel number 150710001 and 150710030.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank
Motion
you very
carries.
much.
Thank you for the question and answer thing too.
Thank you very much for your help.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 8. Discussion and action on a preliminary site plan for Sunset Farms 10-lot subdivision at approximately 3417 South, 2700 West. Do we have someone here for that? If you'll state your name.
Yeah, my name is Tyler Peterson. I'm a resident out on 3417 South, 2700 West. This is Sunset Farm Development. You guys have looked at this. We had the plat approved 2 years ago, and since then we've been in discussions with the city, things like that, getting the engineering plans approved and working with the joint agreement on the stormwater system in place. So nothing has changed since the last one. I noticed on the agenda it showed it was a preliminary. Maybe you could clarify that, Alika. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, in that. No, sorry. Yeah, so like it was stated, so they got final two in 2022. According to our code, if the plat is not recorded within a year, then it's kind of void. They haven't changed anything since they got approval. So that's why it's being shown as preliminary. And since then, our subdivision ordinance has changed. So planning commission gets to approve preliminary and staff gets to approve final. I think the only difference is having the two different phases, just 5 lots in one phase and 5 lots in the other. But other than that, they've gotten approval from engineering and
Yeah,
everything.
we actually had our recent plans
Yeah.
sent to us this morning. So yeah, it's the same. We've just been working with the city, and we decided to two-phase instead of one, and as we sell lots, we'll just keep driving on through. So we don't plan on stopping for a reason. So we're excited about it. Excited to bring a lot more good people to West Haven. So
I do have a question about this. Somewhere in here it talks about this road being a private road.
that's correct.
In general terms, I'm not really in favor of private roads. Could you talk about the reason for that being a private road a little bit
The
more?
only way, well, there's a number of reasons. The only way we could be able to create a development based on the dimensions of the lot was to do a private road. Because if it was public road, that we wouldn't be able to do it with the house that's on the property itself. And having lots on there, it would just, the lot sizes would be ridiculous. You wouldn't be able to put homes in there. And we're doing half-acre lots, so this allows us to be able to do that. It is a private neighborhood, but it's going to be a good-looking one. And when I came to West Haven and saw the people here, and we've loved it here. We wanted to be able to provide that to some new folks and be able to give them that chance to have a nice, quiet neighborhood. That, and 2700 South is a scary road to live on. And we're giving them a safe place where they can just have a nice, quiet neighborhood. So,
Okay, I guess this question's for Alaka. I thought that we changed the street ordinance so that private roads also had to meet the same width requirements as public roads.
I believe they have their own requirements, and I kind of left that to engineering to approve. And I'm thinking since this was approved, a couple of years ago, he's okay with the width of the road. Because I know he's been having conversations with Ed, and even with Dave too, with fire.
yep, everyone's approved it.
So is this going to be under an HOA?
Yeah.
Part of the reason for the length of time is that there's some lengthy discussions regarding the stormwater and upgrading, and we ended up entering into a development agreement with the developer so that we could have that upgraded stormwater for our future development needs and further on down. Which when was that entered? What, about 4 months ago? 5 months ago? Do you remember?
When we sat down and actually came to the agreement, it was actually towards the end of last year. Yeah.
So
since then, we've been finalizing things on our end and securing contractors, things like that.
So that's why it's taken a little bit of time to have it come back, is because once they had gotten the approval and stuff, they had, that's when Ed and looked at it, realized, oh wait, this will actually help our overall capital improvements with our stormwater. And so there was some negotiations. The problem is that we had the city manager who started the negotiations. He left, and so then Emily, well, it was me as the interim, had to, along with Ed, had to try to finish those negotiations, and so that took some time just to work out that wording.
All right, any other questions?
Looks like a nice neighborhood.
We're excited for it.
I'm not a big fan of dead-end streets.
That's why I put a cul-de-sac there.
Yeah, I know, you've never tried to evacuate one, so. Doesn't mean I'm gonna vote no. I'm not a fan.
You'll have a great view of the fireworks every year.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? I'm ready for a motion.
I motion that we forward this application. Oh, I've got the wrong one.
We got a lot of papers.
Grant approval. Yeah.
Grant approval.
It's written a little different.
Okay. I motion that we grant approval of a preliminary plat for a 10-lot subdivision for Sunset Farms. I don't have the parcel number on here.
I don't know if it has if it's a subdivision, does it have a parcel
Subdivision, do I
number?
have them?
Sorry, what was that?
Parcel numbers for the subdivision?
No, but you can use the address at 3417 South, 2700 West.
3417 South, 2700 West.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 9, discussion and action on preliminary site plan and conditional use approval for a daycare facility located at approximately 2400 West Knutson Drive. Do we have an applicant here for Cool Kids Adventure Academy? I like the title.
Hi. So my name is Cindy Buckley. This is my husband, Sam Buckley. We are the owners of Cool Kids Adventure Academy. We actually live here in West Haven. We've lived here for about 19 years. So we've raised our family here, and we're excited to expand our business and come to West Haven. Currently, we have a child care center in Clinton that has 129 kids that we service them and their families. We love taking care of the children. We love building relationships with the families that we serve. We also do a lot of community events in Clinton to also be a part of that community. We look forward to doing that here in West Haven. I personally have been in daycare now for 25 years, so I'm getting pretty old. But I have had a center in Clinton. I started in my home for 15 years and then bought a location in Clinton. And we're just looking to expand and come here to this area. So we feel like we have a great service to give to this community. Yeah. Yes.
Well, based on 3 new schools opening this year, I think there's...
Yeah,
there
there's
are
plenty of kids. So.
All right. Any questions for Ms. Buckley?
I don't think so.
I think everything looks in order. I'm just going through.
Are these going to be retail type businesses, the other 4?
Yes. Yes. We're not sure what type of businesses will go in there yet. In our other location, we have an insurance agent, a salon, I think a office, a chiropractor office is also over in our other location. So we expect something the same.
Yeah, and I mean, staff looking at it, it would be anything that's permitted or conditioned under C1 or C2. Yeah, unless it has something specific that they're not allowing there.
And the parking that we've talked about, we've done before for daycare, are we okay with the limited number of spaces? Like, I think it needed 91, we went to 72, is that?
Yeah, I mean, that's up to you guys. We can discuss that a little bit more.
That was.
That's, yeah, looking at the daycare, what's required for a daycare and what's required for flex space. Yeah, in total, it would be 91 spaces, and I think they're providing around 72. But, yeah, I mean, and you can correct me if I'm wrong there, but a lot of parents would just be dropping off or picking up their kids most of the time. So it's not like they're staying for long periods of time.
They do not stay.
And then there's a lot of, and then I think you have different schedules for your employees, right? So they'll be
Yes.
coming in and out as well.
They're scattered
Yeah.
as well throughout the day. And we are open 6 a.m. till 6 p.m. So.
Do you have a plan for the drop-off? I know with some daycares that's been, and you probably experienced this in Clinton too, just for the flow, Where there's like it's an influx and then,
So the parents, so in our other location, parents start dropping kids off at 6, but 6 till 9:30. But it's scattered depending on the parent schedules. So usually you might get 2-3 families at one time dropping off at different periods of the day during that time frame. And also our pickup times are from 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. So again, it's scattered when they pick them up and drop them off.
yeah, that's good. I think what a previous one, similar, it impeded the traffic in the road a little bit, and I think this one is designed a lot better, so it's not gonna impact the traffic like that, so. And
This
the
has
kids aren't
nothing-
walking across the street to get to there,
No.
so.
This has
And-
nothing to do with you, but I'm a little concerned about people turning out onto Midland. I wish they would signalize that intersection. Maybe someday they will, but
Yeah.
has nothing to do with.
I think that's in the plan, long-term, isn't it? Is that where the pedestrian crossing is right now?
Yes, I talked to Ed and he said no.
No? Okay. I wondered if that was
I was hoping.
at some point, but.
And thank your engineer for having enough handicap parking spaces.
Thank you, Jim.
So, do you ever notice congestion or issues in your Clinton location?
Not really. So,
Just going off of that, I pulled it up. They've got significantly less spots
yeah.
at the Clinton location than what they would have here. So
I think we have like 38.
it's
So-
it's a very small parking lot. so-
Yeah. And we've never had a problem over there. So,
Good.
All right. Any other questions, concerns? If not, I'll
No.
entertain a motion.
Sorry, just really quick. So they did end up providing elevations and just materials and percentages. So it looks like most of it's going to be the fiber cement siding and the stone. So the only thing I would say is just to, I guess, condition wise, and that's up to you guys, is the signage plan. Either way, even if they were to get preliminary and final approval, they have to get a sign permit that would have to comply with city code.
Did you say they already provided the elevations or they need to?
No, they did.
Okay.
They did provide them.
So you said a sign permit for like a sign out on the property?
Signed.
Signage.
Yeah, yeah. So it could be for wall signs, for monuments, things like that.
A sign.
Yeah.
Signage permit, like for their signage.
Oh,
Yeah. A sign permit.
Could I interrupt, Alika? Did we didn't provide the sign, a table, but we did show percentages
Right,
underneath.
yeah.
It's not in perhaps the format maybe that would most be.
Yeah,
but does
that's
that appear reasonable though in terms of what we?
yeah,
we
that's what I'm
have-
saying. As far as like elevations and all that, that's fine. They do comply with city code.
No, thank you. And then signage wise, we can determine, and then we work with staff on what might work, whether sign or pole or
Right.
so that, or on wall, anything that way. So on either
Mhm.
building.
Can you state your name for us?
Brent Keller with Keller Homes, and then Jim Flint with Hanson Engineering. So
Thank you.
could I make a proposal that we make a proposition that Alec can not leave the city? She has been incredible. And
I'll agree with
we-
that one.
We will,
Second.
we will miss
Right.
you, and you have
second
been
that
very good. Peterson, it was Steve before, the Director of Engineering. What was Steve Anderson? I mean, he was just incredible as well. And you've had some really good ones here at the city in terms of just great people to work with. You're growing faster than just about anywhere else. And yet sometimes we see in smaller towns or smaller cities or even bigger ones, it's like, what are you doing here? What can we do for you? And how can we make your life harder? Here at West Haven, Alika, Steve before in his position as well, you've got some really good people that you're trying to help people grow the city in the right way. And we appreciate that. So thank you.
Big shoes to fill.
Thank you. We agree.
Yeah, so whoever
Absolutely.
gets her will be.
All right. You still want a motion?
I'm ready for motion.
I move that
The
we,
motion on like not letting Alika leave, or
Okay.
a motion
Yeah,
on
that's
this
fine with me.
agenda item?
I'll second it.
yeah.
Okay, sorry, we'll get back
Well,
to the.
I'll do a real one. How about grant preliminary site plan approval for daycare center facility at 2400 West Knutson Drive, parcel number 080-280-114 and 080-280-105 with the condition that they include a site plan.
Sign plan.
the signage.
Sign plan.
Sign.
Just
I
for
misspoke.
final.
but
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was gonna say they did provide a site plan.
Second.
Okay, right. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, you have your site plan. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to West Haven.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 10, we have a public hearing to consider a request to rezone parcel number 080290053 and 080290054 in West Haven from A2 to R2. And before we move to our public hearing, those that have an agenda in front of them, just be familiar with the rules governing public hearings so that we can maintain decorum. With that being said, do we want to have a discussion before we move to public hearing? Do we need to have any kind of discussion of what this, do you want to give us maybe a little background, Alika?
Yeah, and you guys can come up too if you have anything to add. It's just this little, it's actually two parcels. They're just wanting to rezone from A2 to R2. So that subdivision below them is Westwood. So that was approved a couple of years ago. So they're just wanting the same zone.
All right, so they're just kind of
R2.
piggybacking now that they have access from the road from Westwood Farms? Okay,
Yeah.
that's what it appears.
Yeah. And then whatever
Otherwise, it
you
was
have
kind
to
of
add.
landlocked a little, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, something to consider there.
All right, go ahead and just give us a little brief explanation, if you don't mind.
Yeah, Jonathan Shaw with the Brand Group. And yeah, so we're just kind of wanting to piggyback off of Westwood Estates and just do 2 to 3 homes depending on what we can fit on that site of minimum 12,500 square foot lots. And we're in talks with Kevin Strafford right now with Wilson Irrigation because there's that canal right there. It is piped, but we're seeing if we can run a fire engine over it with the turnarounds and everything. So we're still working on those easements and whatnot. And as you know, the site plan is still a preliminary, so we're open to feedback if you guys want to see anything differently, so.
All right, so we're just doing the rezone today,
Mhm.
correct?
Yeah. Yeah, and they provided a concept plan to kind of get an idea of what they're thinking.
So it'll just piggyback into those patio homes are there, correct?
No,
Those
they're
aren't the
not.
patio homes? Oh, I was thinking those were.
But that's all zoned R2.
Okay.
And patio homes are what they kind of, in our development review meeting is what they recommended. So I mean, like I said, we're open to anything you guys think and want, so.
All right.
How many homes are you planning on building?
Right now it can fit 3, but depending on what Kevin Strafford with Wilson Irrigation tells me, we might have to dial it back to 2. So, but right now at 12,500 square foot lots, we can fit 3 with adequate turnaround for fire.
And those appear to be a couple hundred square feet bigger than some of the ones that are already
Yep.
approved.
Yep, exactly. And then one of them to get, Alika kind of mentioned that to get rid of some of the open space. So we kind of made one of the lots almost like, I don't know if you have the preliminary right in front of you, around 22,000 to eliminate the open space. So we don't have to put that on you guys or anything to service that. So it'll just be part of, one of the lots will be a lot bigger than the other 2.
Okay, I have a dumb question, and because I'm not familiar with this area, we just barely got some of this material. I mean, I'm not even sure where this is.
So there's your West Haven Park, I believe is right. It butts up on the, I
Right,
believe it would be the east side of the property. It's almost like a little upside down triangle piece off do you know where Westwood Estates is at?
No, I don't think he does.
No.
It's
No,
north
you're
of,
good.
it's north of 3,600 and the
So
corner
it's-
of this butts up to the city property for the park, if I
Yeah.
remember right.
Yeah. So right next to it is a big park that we hold
Right.
West Haven Days.
Yes.
Okay,
Country
yeah,
Park.
Ridge Park, yeah.
Baldwin Park, whatever.
Just to the east, yeah.
Okay, so this conceptual plan that you've provided us, not being really familiar with the area, I'm not sure where you get in and out of there.
As far as road access, so we're.
I mean, like, this is what,
Yeah,
what we've got.
That, we're, right here, we're piggybacking right off Westwood Estates. They have a dead-end road right there, and we're just literally piggybacking off of their road.
Okay, so that's not a stub, that's going into the other road.
Right.
Yep.
Okay,
yep,
that helps
yeah, exactly,
clarify.
and all the utilities are right there at that road.
Okay,
So
that
thank-
makes
thank
perfect
them- We
sense.
thank them for that.
So Westwood Estates is the only access in, correct?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
And
So
those are
you're-
going
And
up
we could, I
fast.
mean, if you guys plan for future, if you want to go through, but I think the preliminary plan was commercial. If I remember right, you wanted that commercial zone, but we could definitely, I mean, have it go through and have kind of a buffer zone there too, if you wanted to see that. Like I said, we're open to anything at this point.
I guess my question had to do with you kind of depending on Westwood Estates to be able to, that they don't go belly up or something on you.
Well, the road's already put in, so honestly,
And they're
that
going
won't
fast.
affect
There's like
us.
15
You don't
homes
care,
already.
so-
yep, I don't care. So, hopefully they don't, but I really won't affect us
Okay.
at that
I
point.
just
Yeah.
wanted to clarify.
And
Yep.
so all of that is phase 1 of Westwood, and yeah, they've been getting their building permits so far. But yeah, the road and everything's in. So if you'd like, we can go to public hearing and then come back to the discussion.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Right.
I'll make a motion, we enter public hearing.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second to enter public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right, we are in public hearing. If anyone online or in the audience would like to step up to the microphone, state your name, your address, and feel free to share. Is there anyone online, Robin? Nope.
No.
Okay. Well, don't all get up at once. No. All right, doesn't look like we really have any interested bodies in
I'll make a motion to end public.
And
Karen?
second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to leave public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're out of public hearing. If we want to have any discussion on the project, I don't really see any problems. They're
it
actually
makes
a little bit
sense.
larger than the homes that they're
Yeah.
buffering into, so.
Yes.
What is the zoning north of that? Like if that, does that allow that to continue into 3,300 if possible? or-
So right now that's A2.
That's A2,
Mhm.
okay,
Yeah. And our general pond still has it as A2, but
okay.
you never know.
General is A2, okay.
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, where it's that only little piece on the other side of the canal, that just kind of makes sense.
Any concerns? Any other questions? Kind of does fit with that angle there. I always wonder how these parcels that are all fit together like
Yeah.
little puzzles, like how's that all gonna work? So
So I'll make a motion that we forward this application to city, to forward this application to city council with the recommendation that they approve the application to rezone parcels 080290054 and 080290053, 1.418 acres in total from A2 to R2.
Second.
all right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, motion carries. You're off on to city council. All right, agenda item number 11, discussion and action for rezone. Rezone parcel, yeah, this is,
what we
no,
just
that's the
did.
same one. That's what we just did. Sorry, moving down. Okay, yeah. Agenda item number 12, public hearing to solicit input on Fifth Amendment to the Green Farms Master Development Agreement. Alaka, do you want to give us a little background?
Actually, it's me.
It's Amy. You got the floor, Amy.
Just so you know, Brian Bayless is here representing Nielsen Homes. So if you have any questions for him, but really there's a lot of just administrative stuff that had to be dealt with in this Fifth Amendment. There's been, the MDA was entered into in 2017, and since then there's been 4 additional amendments. This one has to do with some timing issues regarding the pond. Because of the permits that had to come from the Army Corps, we were waiting for those for a very long time, and they exceeded the deadlines that were outlined in the Third Amendment. So there was that needed to be dealt with so that we could clear up those to take into consideration what was going on with that permitting process, and also dealing with some billing issues. The Third Amendment, for whatever reason, the agreement was that each party was going to pay 1/2 of the subcontractor invoicing. However, when it came down to actually having to pay that, quickly realized that the city is really not set up to do the lien releases, get the certificates of insurance, that sort of thing. And so this outlines that Nielsen Homes will be collecting all of those, providing those to the city, and will be reimbursing Nielsen Homes. They're set up administratively to be able to do those things, and they get those on a routine basis because the subcontractors, routinely work with Nielsen. And it just makes it so that we're not having to track those things, and Nielsen is, both for the community center and also for the pond. So. Any questions?
Do all parties agree that the timelines are good in here?
Yes.
That they can be met?
That's why it took a little bit longer. We've been actually working on this agreement for about 6 months because we've been trying to make sure that we get the timelines correct and that the work is continuing, which it has been at a really great pace. And the pond has been filling. We got the docks are being assembled. The bathrooms have I believe the bathrooms have been put in at this point. But a lot of what we're waiting for, both for, have to do with that permitting through the state and through the Army Corps, both for like the road to finish and for the pond to be able to be finished, which they've done everything that they're supposed to do in regards to that. So they're not in default in any way, shape, or form. This is just housekeeping.
Ms. Hugh, I have a question about the submittals of the applications to the Army Corps. Who does those submittals of the applications?
Nielsen Homes has done it. They submitted it originally back in October. Okay. So that when I say that we've been waiting a significant amount of time, but we've also helped with some of the state applications, and they've been a group. Both parties have helped with those submittals, but Nielsen has been in charge of doing that, and they have actually done that. They provide a weekly update to the city as to the work that they are performing every single week, so we know where everything is, both with the community center and with the pond.
Okay, but the overall responsibility for the submittals lies with Nielsen, not the city?
Yes, but there is a caveat in the Fifth Amendment regarding if they need our help with those submittals, that we will cooperate.
Okay, got it.
Because it's to everybody's benefit that we get it done so that we don't have a very large hole in the ground with no water in it.
I have one correction to the MDA amendment, and it is in section 1, subsection CI, which is at the very top of page 3. And it says, let's see, in February of 2024 shall not exceed 2, it's supposed to be 2 million. There's a decimal instead of a comma. So it's 2,000.
It should be
so
there.
So I figured that would be an important revision to make.
Yes, that is something that's important.
Unless Nelson Homes wants to pick up the difference.
I think that probably not the case.
I have a handful of questions. I'm not sure whether they're appropriate before or after the public hearing.
Well, let's find out.
Should I go ahead and ask them now? Okay. So in the broad terms of the pond project, somewhere there's supposed to be a sign commemorating the Poulter family. Where is that sign supposed to go?
I think that it'd be best to have Brian answer that question. We actually did pass a resolution regarding the sign, what will be on the sign, what it will be made of. Brian, do you want to come up and tell them exactly where it's going to be? Because I can't remember for the life of me.
Absolutely. So Brian Bayless, 1740 Comey Road. I'm with Nelson Homes, so it's great to be here with you tonight. Love these meetings. They're very special. Very near and dear to my heart.
That they are.
Yes, they are. Missing little girl soccer practice and all. No, we to answer your question, George, we have a great wetland consultant that helps us with a lot of these things. He makes recommendations and deals with the Corps on a daily basis. You can't pay that guy enough to do what he does. And he makes recommendations to us as the applicant, and the city was willing to cooperate, and so we were able to get those applications into the Corps in a format that is conducive for him to get those approvals. Like Amy said, it behooves all of us to get those done and get them done expeditiously. So, to answer your question where the signage goes, Russell, it goes if you're looking at the amendment. So I think the third to last page shows what was approved, and it is, oh man, so we've got some picnic shelters. Yes, it's Exhibit A. And this was approved back in, like, you can see the date on the bottom left-hand side of the page. It's like November 30th, 2022. And we resolved the location of that signage after that date, but it's right there along 3650. I think that's the name of that street, right? 3650.
Near the parking lot then?
Yes, near the parking lot. So it's kind of sandwiched in between the two driveways in the parking lot. I'm like 90% sure of that, but it's right there along the road, and it says it in the agreement that we have with the Poulters. I don't remember the exact location of it, Russell. I apologize, but I think it's right there near one of the entrances to the parking lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I do have a couple of other questions
Sure.
kind of related to that.
Yeah.
So it's been a while since I've read the agreement with the Poulters, but I'm wondering if this MDA uses the right nomenclature for this project to be in compliance with the agreement with the Poulters.
Okay. Just the naming nomenclature, is that what you're talking about?
Actually, it does. This isn't, because, and this talks about, so there's a whole nother document, a whole nother resolution regarding the signage and how it's going to be designated on the, with the sign, what it has to say. We haven't, us referring to it as the pond project is not, in any way, not in compliance with the agreement.
I thought, and maybe I'm just, asking a question, but I thought it said somewhere in here, I thought it referred to it as the Green Farm Pond.
I don't believe so. I believe it just says pond project.
Okay,
And
that would be good then.
The second paragraph under background, the very first sentence refers to it as the Green Farm Project, MDA.
Well, the Green Farm Project MDA, that is the name of the MDA
Okay.
Okay,
itself. That's not the pond, that's just
Okay. I just wanted to clear up what he was
okay.
referencing.
So that's perfect then.
But to answer your
Okay.
question, Russell, I guess we already signed a previous agreement that would trump this, And we've made extensive commitments to the Poulter family, and Amy was heavily involved in that to get those nailed down. But we've got the naming nomenclature identified in that, and we're going to be consistent with that. And then we've also got exactly what the signage is to say on there. So all of that was in that other agreement that we'll be
Which
consistent with.
the Poulter
Yeah.
family signed off on specifically. They,
Yeah, I
they
mean,
had
and I know those agreements are on place, and I've read those. I thought I'd read somewhere in here, or this, maybe it was just in that introductory thing.
I
where-
think they're just at the bottom. I mean, I'm on page 82 of my packet, but it's page 9 in the Green Farm Pond portion. It just says Green Farm Pond at Poulter Preserve, I think is all.
Yes.
Maybe that's the only place I've
And that was,
got that.
I think
Okay.
and that's still okay.
and that's fine, yeah.
All right.
'Cause that's not
So
the sign.
I've got another couple of questions then. The road that, what do we call that road, 3650?
Yes.
So is that going across the canal, or is it going to be built to the parking lot now and then across the canal at some later date?
Yeah, so to Amy's point, Russell, yeah, I don't have an exhibit that shows that entire project, but it is called out on page 11 of the MDA. It identifies 3650 South right-of-way extension. It's the very last line item. If you look at, it says item number 106, row 106. So that identifies that portion of 3650 that goes from the pond parking lot to Pheasant Cove, the connection to Pheasant Cove. And the reason why that was so difficult to get that approved and we broke it up the way that we did, Russell, is because that's the portion of the road that required the Army Corps of Engineers permit. So the wetlands were to the east of that, so we had to get that permit approved before we could get that portion of the road built.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
And there's one more important, really critically important component to that is we can only do that work over those wetlands and over the Hooper Irrigation Canal when that water's turned off. So the water doesn't even turn off, I think, until October 15th. And so then we have that window of time from October to next spring before they turn the water on in April or whenever it is. So.
Okay, I've got only one more question.
Yeah.
And I'm almost done. And I'm having trouble finding the right page, but somewhere in here it talks about streets and alleys.
Yes. It's
Yes.
it's the very last page of the written text of the amendment. It's page 6, section 2,
Okay.
streets and alleys.
So where are those streets and alleys that this is referring to?
It's in the Third Amendment. Originally, there was some language in there regarding, with private streets and versus public. And this section needed to clarify that from the Third Amendment.
So the actual language that it replaces, Russell, it says, so I just pulled up, this is Amendment 3, Section 8A. It's the section that's being replaced, because I was curious about that too. It's been a little while since I brushed up on that. To add to what Amy explained, it just says that those roads will be private, and that agreement kind of changed. That was originally the agreement probably 2 years ago, I don't know the exact dates.
Yeah.
But then we came back and said, no, that's not acceptable. The city didn't like that. So we changed these to say they are public, but they are, in a sense, they're private in that we're not allowing parking on those roads. So it's a public right of way, but there are restrictions in terms of parking.
Yeah,
And
so
then we have-
where are those? That's,
in courtyard.
You have to go into the Third Amendment. It actually has, I believe it has specifically where it is. It may even have an amendment, or not amendment, an exhibit showing the plat. Because I believe that's one of the reasons why it got changed, is because the engineer noticed that the plat got recorded and they were public.
yeah.
But the Third Amendment was talking about them being private.
I couldn't pull that up and blow it up enough to see where they were, so I'm just curious. It's in the courtyard area?
Yeah, so it's as you go up Green Farm Way, before it terminates into the field, there are those townhomes right in there.
Okay,
Is that ringing a bell?
yeah.
So it's just those townhomes that are north. Those were originally designated as private, but we've changed it to be consistent with this language. So
Okay,
essentially what the plat was recorded as, this makes that now consistent with what was incorrect in the MDA number 3.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
So to clear this up for my brain, 3650 does or does not allow parking on the street.
Sorry, this is the two different concepts, Jeff. So 3650.
By the pond.
Yes, absolutely. You can park on the street there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking about within the courtyard.
Okay.
Yep, good question.
Well, thank you. We do have a history, don't we, Brian?
Yes, we do. They're like, to Russell's point though, it's like we're kind of cleaning up 3 or 4 housekeeping items like Amy mentioned. And so, yeah, keeping them all straight is a bit of a chore, but yeah, I think this clarifies both the parking things as well as the things that Amy talked about, the reimbursement for the pond and the rec and the community center, as well as this, the Army Corps of Engineers permitting for that 3650.
All right. All right, well, we'll go ahead and enter public hearing and go from there. Thank you for the explanation.
I'll make a motion, we enter public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to enter public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are in public hearing. If anyone would like to step forward with any questions or comments, whether in person or online. Robin, anyone? All right.
Make a motion to exit public hearing.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second to leave public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, we are out of public hearing. I was really hoping to use my button tonight. I have a timer and everything. Somebody has to step up. Okay, all right, out of public hearing. We had a really good explanation. Anybody else have some comments or? I don't. I think it was pretty straightforward, explained really well, so.
I'll make a motion to exit public hearing.
Didn't we already do
We already
that?
did that.
We did
Already
that.
did. I'm not paying
I think-
attention. I'm asleep.
I know.
Right.
Kind of going on. We haven't had double-digit agendas for a while, so we've been kind of spoiled.
That's true.
And it must, it's all for George. You're,
Do we make a
We're breaking you in
recommendation or a
nicely.
motion on this?
A recommendation.
Okay. At this time, I would recommend that the planning commission make a motion to recommend adoption to the city council of the Fifth Amendment to the MDA.
Second.
I apologize, but could I get I got one quick question.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Before we do that.
I'll
and I'm
retract
sorry
that recommendation.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you all threw me off track with that. Beating on me, but. So now that I understand that, that Nilsson's responsible for the submittals, when I read through this in section D, paragraph 4, it says developers shall have no liability for and shall not be considered in default for any delays that have occurred or may occur as a result of delays in application submittals. And I understand that the city has some responsibility in working with Nilsson there, but I'd suggest that perhaps the wording be changed that to indicate that are late submittals that are the fault of Nilsson or something. So, you know, the way it's worded, the submittals could happen pretty much any time, and no one would be held responsible for that.
The problem is that if for some reason the Army Corps kicks it back for whatever special reason that, because it's the Army Corps, and they have to, and Nilsson has to resubmit, then I don't want to have it removed because of that. Because if there's something that happens with a state agency that kicks it back for no fault of Nilsson, because they've got it submitted and they've had it submitted since, like I said, October, that would be the reason why I would not want to have it taken out, because we don't want them to be in default over something that they can't control.
So absolutely, and that's why I was suggesting that wording would be put in there through no fault of Nilsson. So that, you know, so it sounds like this pond has been on the planning board for quite some time, I'm guessing.
It has been since November. No, it would have been in September of 2022 is when the planning started. They had to submit to the city by December of 2022 their initial plans, and then because of other different things, it took until October of 2023 for the submittals to the state and to the Army Corps. Is that fair to say, Brian? So yes, the answer is yes. It has been in planning stage since at least fall of 22, so I guess 2 years now.
Yeah. So was the pond, and I apologize for not being as familiar with this. This is my first meeting, as these guys pointed out. But was the pond originally part of the concept for this development?
It was part of the Second Amendment, actually the First Amendment. It was either the first, no, I think it was the Second Amendment, because the Second Amendment to the MDA actually talk about that Nielsen and the city were going to apply together for some federal funding, some grant money. Was it grant money? And we ended up not being able to do that because of we didn't qualify, and so that's why in the Third Amendment, it got amended so it was more specific as to what it was going to look like, who was going to pay for what, how things were going to get divided out. But I think it's always been kind of a part of the original 2017 MDA, but it really kind of came into focus in the Second Amendment back in 2019.
If I may, there was a lot that went into the design of this park. A lot more, I guess, than meets the eye. Hopefully all of you understand, and maybe just as by a brief bit of background, when we would get on these design, like the pond idea has been on the map for a long, long time, but actual implementation of this, Amy, I don't know if you ever had the misfortune of sitting on some of those calls, but we had Matt, we had a guy from the Division of Wildlife Resources. He was like the fish and game expert on, the spawning of the fish, and I mean, he was just like into it. We had so many folks. We had our planner, we had the city's engineer. I mean, we had probably 8 people on that call, and we were all looking at this from a very different angle. The Division of Wildlife Resources guy would give us ideas a lot on submitting for grants. I think that's where the fishing dock and the aeration systems came from. So in terms of when it was approved in that original MDA, I think MDA 2, something like that.
It's the second MDA that was specific about the pond.
And so to get that design done by November 30th, 2022, it was a Herculean effort it was like herding cats to get everybody to kind of have that final design. Because as you could imagine, there's no way we're submitting anything to the Corps until we have that thing baked. And so we wanted to get everybody's feedback on that. I think we even reached out to the mayor and some of the council members, but there were a lot of hands in that pie to make sure this design was done. The Poulters were involved in that, now that I'm remembering. So there was a lot of people that had to weigh in on that design, and it just took us some time to get all of those ducks in a row before we could actually say, okay, this is the plan. You're okay, right? You're okay, right? You're okay, all the different parties. And then we were like, okay, now we're ready to submit these to the Corps. So that's one of the reasons why it did take so long for us to get that information submitted to the Corps.
Sounds like it took 4 years from the time that the pond was planned to get the initial submittal to the Corps.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I would say as we worked through the stages of the development, we got to the point where we had developed everything that we needed to, and we were ready to get to that pond portion. So I would say once we decided to move forward on this in earnest, it took us about a year to finalize the design with all the different parties. It's been on the map, for 3 years. But then when it was like, okay, it's time to get this thing designed, we bought the property from the Poulters. We ended up doing the trade with the Poulters, and Amy was heavily involved in that. I would say it was a year, and then these permits, like Amy talked about, have been since October through right now to get those permits from the Corps. So that's hopefully that background helps all of you as well as you, George. Yeah.
So, with D, subsection, 4, would you like it to just be added in? So it says, developer shall have no liability for and shall not be considered in default for any delays, and then just add in the words through no fault of their own, and then go on that have occurred or may occur?
I think that would leave it less open-ended, and I think I'd be more comfortable with that.
Are you okay with that, Brian? So, okay.
Thank you.
You got to understand, this agreement has been rewritten almost every word over the past 6 months. So it's just been a
Well, I
long,
appreciate
tedious.
you're on the Fifth Amendment, and there's a lot of work that's gone into this, so, yeah.
All right, so I'm trying to figure out where we're at here. So we are going to make a motion to
Gonna recommend to make a motion?
recommend, do we recommend this?
Yes.
Recommend, it doesn't have to go to city council, we just recommend the amendment? Or do we recommend to city council the amendment?
Recommendation.
Okay,
It says recommend to make a motion.
I think,
I think you make a
think
motion to
it-
recommend.
You're just
I think Amy
recommending.
was
You're
making
making a motion to recommend.
Recommend it.
I should have phrased it differently. I should have sent it to Jeff first to have him like edit it
Yeah.
for me because
Very bottom.
yeah, make a motion to recommend approval to the city council of the Fifth Amendment with the two changes on page 3 with the, so it says $2 million. And then adding on page 4, through no fault of their own, under D subsection 4.
Stay close, Amy. Here we go. All right. I'll make a motion to recommend adoption to the city council of the Fifth Amendment to the MDA, Green Farm MDA, with the changes on page 3 of changing it from 2,000 to 2 million, replacing the decimal with the comma. And then on page 4, adding to subsection, go ahead,
D4.
D4, at the end, through no fault of their own.
Second.
we have a motion and a second with those changes, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? All right, motion carries, thank you. All right, moving on to agenda item number 14. Public hearing to solicit public input on the Second Amendment to the Riverwalk Master Development Agreement. Do we have anyone here with that agenda item? Anybody here from Riverwalk? Anyone online?
Yes.
Oh, good.
All right. We got some.
Okay, please state your name and your address, please.
Yeah, my name is Matt Christensen. I represent the owner of Riverwalk Townhomes located at 1684 West 1960 South.
Okay, maybe Alika or Amy, do you guys want to give a background on this change needed?
Yeah, so this is just a simple change. So they are requesting to basically add this new office building. To my understanding, they're using one of the townhomes as the office building itself. And so they just wanted to add wording in there to say, hey, we want to add this extra building just for their office use. And so they've updated their plat. And then along with that, they took out the trail that was originally there. Now, to my understanding, Riverwalk was supposed to be much bigger and so many other phases, and that didn't necessarily happen. So that trail would essentially go nowhere. I did touch base with Brock to confirm that and say, hey, what are your plans for this area? Do you find it necessary? It's like that. And so he confirmed that he's okay with them removing it. So those are the two main amendments to their MDA. And Matt, you can jump in and add anything further if you'd like.
Yeah, as Alika stated, I mean, currently we have a townhome project that we bought last year in September. It doesn't have a dedicated leasing office, so our current on-site management team is officing out of one of the townhome units, so we can't have that in the rental pool, obviously, and it doesn't really give them a good space to do business and host current and prospective residents. So we're here today to try to amend this MDA to allow us to build this leasing office because the current MDA doesn't allow it in our common area spaces.
So what we're doing is we have an MDA that required a certain amount of common space or open space, and now we're saying it doesn't have to be open space. Is that what I'm hearing?
I don't believe the original one, and Amy, I guess you can jump in, really had a specific or anything too specific for the percentage of open space. It was very, that MDA was very short. They probably should have added more to that. And so that's another reason why I felt it would be okay to bring up having a separate leasing office.
and we're talking about a 760 square foot just office, bathroom, just a place of business to have our on-site management team have a professional space.
There's nothing in the original amendment saying that they can't do what they're asking to do, is what.
Yeah, I thought this looked like it was very straightforward, but now as I look at it from space, if there was a requirement for open space, that whether it was in the MDA or whether it was in a zoning ordinance, that maybe it's not quite as straightforward. I'm not sure.
I may have misspoke on that, but yeah, really, we're just trying to build a leasing office in a area right there in front of our property, on our property.
And that property is actually open space right now, correct?
The area that we're trying to build it on?
Yes.
Yes, it's just hardscape, xeriscape landscaping.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to enter public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to enter public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, any opposed? All right, we are in public hearing. Anyone online or in the audience that would like to step forward? With no one running up to the podium.
I'll make a motion. We exit public hearing.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to leave public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Say
All right,
aye.
we are now out of public hearing.
Okay, he said aye.
So that seemed like a pretty simple amendment. Does anybody have any issues with it, or?
I'm still questioning the open space because I just want to make sure I understand this. I don't want to make a bigger deal out of it than it needs to be, but the previous MDA does limit the number of units per acre.
Right, but they're not building a new unit to rent out, right? Like all those units are existing. It's not a residential unit.
This leasing office is 760 square feet or something like that?
Yeah, it's
something like that, roughly.
fairly
That's what we're
small.
proposing, yes.
I
Yeah.
can't really see it very
It's
well.
tidy,
in this,
yeah.
but it's very small.
Yeah, so they're not asking to add more units to rent out. It's all built. They only own phase 1 of Riverwalk. And so all of that will remain the same. It's just a question of adding this small office building. And my understanding, the MDA didn't necessarily say that you couldn't have any sort of structure within the open space either.
I guess what I'm struggling with is we're replacing open space with an office building, and we've made quite a lot of efforts to write ordinances that include and expand open space and provide open space. So,
Sure, that's very valid. I think at the time, we recently updated our mixed use ordinance. At the time, there wasn't really a percentage of what should be open space, right? And so a lot of things came in where, they would say, yeah, there's open space there. And it's not disappearing. There's still going to be the open space surrounding this building. There's still going to be that xeriscape, or however they want to landscape it, surrounding it. It's just taking a small portion out of it.
So is the current parking then adequate for this 700 square foot office building, or is there going to be additional parking spaces required? Put that out.
It shows the addition of multiple spots.
No, I mean, I don't think there's any, nothing's really changing, right? Because if they were to rent out that unit, they have their own garage. And
Right.
so So, and that's already 2 spaces that, the new residents coming in could use.
How many parking spaces are currently there?
None.
I feel like they're right there on,
Right, yeah.
they're on there.
But are they on there? Are those parking
Yeah,
spaces
they-
currently there, or that's what's going to
That's
be
currently
added?
there.
They're currently
okay, I
there.
thought
That's
And if,
existing.
Where
if
it was
you look
shaded
at-
meant that was where it was going to be added.
Robin, I don't know if you can pull up the map of it. It's not like I'm not trying to offend anyone in the room, but it's not like we're losing a ton of open space. It's the office is going right on Xeriscape.
Right.
And you still have the green area. I don't know what direction that is. I want to say southwest of it.
Yeah, I think it's south.
So I don't, looking at the map and looking at what's already built there, it goes with the community. It's not really taking away in the middle of the community any space that the community use. It's at the curve in the road. If I'm wrong, someone correct me, please. But if that makes sense. And I'm not a fan of like taking away open space. I don't want to come across as that at all. But I do think like that's probably the best place if you're going to put something there. That's a good use of space.
How many parking spaces currently exist there?
I believe there's 5.
There's 5.
If you look at, I don't know what page in your packet, towards the end where basically it's showing the concept of the building.
No, I'm looking at it, but
No,
it's
the one behind it.
the wrong one. Well,
It's the
gave
right part of it. Yeah, that one you're holding.
The extra one.
So it's showing that building and the setbacks, and it's showing that they're adding 4 spaces actually,
Right.
4 parking spaces.
Yeah, that was my question. How many
How
exist?
many are existing?
And a handicap.
How many are we adding?
So we have 4, 5, I guess, with the 1 handicap.
And if I may, the property itself has adequate, there's like 77 open stalls over the whole property as well.
Yes.
They're not garages, so.
Yes, they all have additional guest parking.
Well, I'm not worried about adding parking. I was.
That was your
worried-
question. We're just answering.
I was worried about
question.
adding parking, actually, not taking away parking.
Okay, so is your concern, adding parking?
That's one.
Like how many? Would you rather they don't add any at all?
I don't
whatever you
know
like.
how
Let's discuss
crowded
this.
it gets to renting a townhome. So. Does it get that busy that we need to have that many more parking spaces?
We don't have to add any parking spaces. No, we thought it'd be we have the space. We were going to add it for our office there. We don't have to add those.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine it much changing, right? Because if the employee's still using one, whether parking on the street or one of the guest parking.
So the 5 spots that are there now, are they allotted to a unit, or are they excess of the units?
They're excess.
I would just say keep them, not add the 4 and keep the open
I don't
space.
see any reason to add them, that it can stay as open space there.
Yeah.
Unless you're having a flood of people wanting to lease off months. I don't know.
I want to go on record and say that Jeff is okay with reducing the number of parking stalls.
That's what I meant, because that's what I meant.
The parking stall czar is officially
Yes.
relenting.
So are you all agreeing to, or recommending they eliminate those 4 additional ones, or those 4 proposed?
That's what my recommendation is. I don't know how anybody else feels.
Anything else?
Did you have something, Dan? Okay, thank you. You look
Dan,
like
we
you're
haven't
on
seen
the
you
edge
for
of
a
your
while,
seat.
so it's been a while.
Thank you. Just in recommendation of the parking, obviously that's part of my responsibility with the city. And in these high-density areas, we typically have a struggle. The parking that they put into development is adequate according to our standards, but the convenience is on the road. And so when we talk about putting this unit and having staff park on the road, our city streets are not a dedicated parking spot for staff. So as a way to give them a place to park when they're there for the office, I would recommend obviously having some parking spaces for them so that they're not being forced to be on the road where it's not a dedicated spot. So, and any additional parking you can put on there obviously just helps us to get more off the road when it comes to.
Are they currently
winter park.
parking on the road?
Well, because they're using a unit, they're parking in the unit. But once they build this and they rent out the unit, then that parking has to go someplace. And so the suggestion was maybe they park on the road. Well, that can't be a dedicated place for an employee to park. So I'd recommend we give them additional parking as for the staff, and then also additional parking so we get more off our streets. Wintertime is a struggle in that area when we have to plow with all the cars that line there. So
I see that.
just my recommendation.
I would just say maybe not the full 4 though. Maybe a couple. To my understanding, there's not like a group of employees that are there. It's probably 1 or 2. And correct me if I'm wrong. That's just
Two full-time employees, yes.
yeah. And that's just from experience. So we can just allot to 2 instead of the 4. That way we can still have more of that open space.
The difference in zero-scaped open space between 2 and 4 parking spots isn't hardly enough worth talking about.
Agreed.
I agree.
I'm wasting your time.
No, if we were going to eliminate 4, I would agree with you. But if we're only going to eliminate 2, then you know, because it's not green space. It's
open space. I guess this has nothing to do with this MDA specifically, but I guess moving forward, whenever there's an MDA, make sure there's specific percentage. There wasn't for this one, and so that's why.
Yeah, with the link you sent me, I was able to go back and read that very quickly. So thank you.
Well, if we're ready for a motion, is someone feeling pretty strongly about what to make on this one?
Where is that?
With 2 or 4 additional stalls, or no more
I
additional
just say
stalls?
keep it the way that it's proposed. So,
Sorry,
Make a motion. if you're
I'm
ready.
gonna cough.
Yeah, I'm ready for motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval to the city council for the second amendment to the Riverwalk Master Development Agreement.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Recommendation off to city council.
Thank you.
Okay. Boy, 3 public hearings in one night. This has been it's been a while.
Yeah, and we haven't gotten to use the
I
button.
know. Okay. I hope you guys are ready to participate back there because you've been very patient. So I don't know. All right, agenda item number 16, public hearing to consider an amendment to the parking regulations, Chapter 71 ordinance. You want to talk about that, Alika? Or is this what Dan's here waiting patiently.
Dan the man.
Don't you know people in the city that could get you higher on the agenda? I just kind of wondered.
I offered that to him.
Mm-hmm.
He said no.
Next time I motion that he gets it.
Okay.
I don't blame you.
Commissioners, thank you for your time. We've had a couple of issues within our city and related to parking that has warned us to go in and do some additions and also some slight changes to our parking ordinance. We've had some concern about parking in particularly our cul-de-sacs. We've had some issues with garbage collection and then obviously preserving the turnaround right away for fire apparatus. And so we've needed to put in the language of not permitting perpendicular parking anywhere in the city. Obviously, that would be the issue that we've been having in the cul-de-sacs is perpendicular parking, which has created those issues. So we're, adding the addition would obviously help us to be able to regulate that, police that between the city and the sheriff's department to ensure that we don't have those issues anymore, that our garbages are collected in those cul-de-sac areas, and that we don't have any other issues that would be in violation of our agreement with the fire department. While we had it cracked open, we wanted to look at a couple other things, so we didn't have to do this again. On vehicles for sale, we have in another part of our ordinances that says that people can't sell cars on empty lots because they're not a registered car lot. And so it's completely restricted. And in our current ordinance, it says 48, it can be parked there for 48 or more consecutive hours on the city street. Well, we feel like that if we're not allowing people to do it on their lots, we shouldn't allow them to do it on our streets. So we're asking to remove the language of allowing them 48 hours on their street. Obviously, part of that is 48 turns into, actually 5 days if they're putting it on the weekend, and I have to start the clock based on discovery, which would be Monday or Tuesday, and then that leaves it there for quite some time. And as people see that something is permitted, then they believe that it's permitted for them too, and it will escalate. And so we're asking to remove the 48 hours and just prohibit any vehicle from being put on the city street for sale. The other part of it is in the specific prohibited parking. This change is required as it relates to our recreational vehicles. Over the years that I've been handling the parking requirements in the city, this particular section was a little unclear and a little confusing to people, so we wanted to bring it to you and clear it up a little bit so that the interpretation was, or the intent was completely clear. So we separated A, which is basically just trailers of any type. And when we say our recreational vehicles, we're talking recreational vehicle trailers, we're talking about snowmobile trailers, motorcycle trailers, stuff. So Section A would be specifically to trailers, open, closed, cargo, those type of trailers. And they are not permitted to be parked or stored there, period. And then Section B, which would be more specific to camp trailers, motor homes, those type of things. The boats are in that first category, so they are not included in this section. And I actually, the reason why you've got the amendment is because over the last couple of days, I ran into a similar situation I've had for years, and that's when I go and I see a trailer parked on the street and I put a reminder, they're not a ticket, it's a reminder that it's not permitted. I get about 50% of them come back and say, I just barely got home from my vacation and I dropped it off. Well, our old ordinance said that in order for it to stay there for the purpose of loading or unloading for 24 hours, it had to have the towing vehicle attached. Well, some of us know that not everybody has extra towing vehicles around. And so a lot of them say, I had to use my truck or I had to use my SUV, which I normally tow my trailer with. I had to go to work. And so with the changes that you have before you, I want to remove the attachment, the towing vehicle attachment, and say, okay, you know, you're allowed to park the trailer and obviously a motorhome or mini motorhome in front of your house for up to 24 hours for the purpose of loading and unloading. That gives them the opportunity to obviously park it there, and then use their vehicle for work and then come back, take care of the trailer and put it back, and without a citation or a notification from the city. So anyway, so that we're making the recommendation that we add those additions as far as perpendicular parking and make those changes to the vehicle for sales and the prohibited parking specifically related to trailers, camp trailers, and motorhomes.
So just a quick question. I don't want
Sure.
to ruin your train of thought. This is replacing this other one?
Correct. The one I handed you is
what you're
the
proposing?
new recommendation.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you,
I'm
Dan.
taking out some of the language in that 7106 where it says whether for the occupancy, storage of items, or towing purposes. Well, the occupancy of people is a camp trailer, so we need to take that description out so it's included in the new section where it's clarified.
I'm not sure I don't have a trailer, so.
Okay.
But to me, as I read 71.06A, I don't think it says what I heard you say. Because if I've got a neighbor who's got a camp trailer, not a motorhome, but a trailer that he's going to attach to his truck and live in that trailer, then that falls under A.
B.
Well, I don't.
It says camp trailer.
Occupancy of
Well,
people.
but-
Occupancy of people is the definition that we took out of that section.
Well, and I understand what you're saying. That's not clear to me because it's still a trailer. So you've specified camp trailer in B, so that meets what you're saying.
Correct.
But a camp trailer is still a recreational vehicle.
And we can change the recreational type vehicle. We can change that language, obviously. There are some arguments that a snowmobile trailer should fall under recreational, and obviously it's not. It's a utility trailer for a specific purpose, and it's tied to recreation. So we wanted to make sure that we were inclusive of those type of trailers in that section. So if we want to take vehicles out there and just put recreational type hauling trailers or whatever, we certainly could say that. Most of the time we're looking at, like I said, snowmobiles, motorcycles, ATVs, those type of things, and some of those trailers are specific to some of that equipment.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, and when you delete the words for the occupancy of people, that says what you say. But then if you read that paragraph straight up, not knowing whether that language had been there before, then it's still an unattached trailer of any type. And so maybe if you put in parentheses not to include camp trailers.
I'd have to default to our attorney.
I agree with him. I think it makes it like you can't leave it at all unattached at any time, and then it kind of says in the next one that you can for up to 24 hours.
So it would make it more clear if just like you suggested, that if you put not to include camp trailers.
Okay.
That would make me happy, and it would accomplish what you're trying to accomplish too. I think it would be more clear.
Okay. Absolutely.
thank you for adding the words up to over, or taking out the words over 24 hours. That would have been a problem.
So if I can look at this, section A, put trailers and then put in parentheses excluding recreational type vehicles. It shall be unlawful for any person. So in the title, that first part of that would say trailers excluding recreational type vehicles, where the vehicles is the word, right? So motorhomes would be a vehicle.
I'm just, can I
Is
ask
that-
a
is that-
question here?
is that
And
adequate?
it's not of you, Dan, but it's maybe Amy. 7105 prohibits overnight camping. So do we need to be redundant in A, 7106A?
That's on city. Oh, yeah, I guess.
And 7106B? Like, I mean, is it fine to leave it out of A? Just leave A as is? Because it states it up there, or is it two different things?
So 71.06B, and we probably, this would be where we'd need some clarification and put like unoccupied camp trailer motorhome.
Okay.
7105 has to do with an occupied, because we've had some, can't use the word homeless anymore, I guess. But
Transient?
that's not,
No,
I'm
you
not
can't
sure,
do that
there's
one either.
another politically correct word.
Unhoused.
Unhoused, thank you.
Attainable.
Who like to take their either homemade campers or that sort of thing and park them at our parks. And so that's been an issue that we've had to deal with.
So what I agree with that. So I'm saying, do we need to change 7106A, or does 7105 cover that?
I think that, 7105 is the, occupied.
Yeah, and 7106 is just the trailer.
Unoccupied,
Okay.
and that needs, and I think that we should probably put unoccupied
Okay.
in,
In A.
Or in
actually, I
B.
think, no, it should be in B.
In B, yes.
Yeah, in B.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, 7105 is one that I use quite a lot for short-term use of city property for living in a motorhome or trailer within the city limits. So
Yeah, we still have, I have to think where we're at. Okay, well, should we go into public hearing?
are you okay
I
with
make a
that, or-
motion that we go into public hearing to.
Thank you, Dan.
To consider an amendment to the parking regulations.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second, enter public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? We are in public hearing. If we have anyone that would like to step forward, just to let you know, you have 2 minutes. And I really want to try this button.
Question on that, because there's a couple parts to his
Yeah,
thing.
go ahead.
Yeah.
The floor is yours, so go ahead and just
My name's
introduce
TJ
yourself.
Cooper, 3470 South, 4825 West. So on one of his things was about the boat being in section A instead of section B. On that, when you say that being disconnected from it, but you allow camper trailers, as a boat, if you come home from somewhere farther than you're saying typically a day trip, it does not give us time to unload that. If I come back from Lake Powell after a week-long trip, you're telling me I don't have any time to park my boat on my street in front of my house at all to get it unloaded and packed. With how much time and materials I'm taking, that seems a little heavy for that when you allow it for trailers,
Okay.
camper trailers.
All right, we'll address these with Dan. So that's your main concern is
That is on that one. The next one I have is in the cul-de-sacs.
on what? Say that
The
again.
parking in the cul-de-sacs.
Oh, cul-de-sacs.
Yes. The parking in the cul-de-sacs, you are very limited on the parking, especially if you're at the very end two houses. And the problem I have with that is there's nowhere to park, and when trash gets put out, it even gets more limited. And with where I'm at specifically, there's a fire hydrant that I lose right next to my house. Plus, anytime I have some guests, and some of them are elderly, it makes it harder for them to park because I'm limited on where I can get. So if I have family at my house, you're now telling me I have to park clear down the street when I could fit maybe 2 or 3 up closer. So now it's a safety issue by you guys making me park a certain way instead of allowing that. So I have an issue with him just eliminating that completely, taking that off of the cul-de-sacs.
Okay, can I get your address again? I would like to look up your property.
3470 South, 4825 West.
48. I'm going to pull up your property just for
Yes.
reference purposes. So 3470 South, 4825 West.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll look at that. So
there's other concerns with my property specifically also, if you're pulling it up, is the sidewalk in my cul-de-sac got pushed back 4 feet into my property. So now I've lost more parking in my property because I'm not allowed to park on the sidewalk or in the easement of you guys' codes. And I have a fire hydrant also right on the corner of my property that now is painted red into my driveway. So going back to all of the things that the city's allowed to happen, I'm getting twice as hard at parking, and now it's even going worse with this getting passed through.
okay, all right. We are writing these down. We're going to
That's fine.
bring Dan back up. Is there any other concerns or?
Those are the biggest things. I mean, Dan has dealt with me a lot, and due to my neighbors that keep calling on me on how to park, where my trash cans can go, and everything that's going on. When I have my other neighbors here that have no issues with me, it makes it very hard for what I'm able to do, and it just keeps limiting, if this does pass, what I'm able to do at the very end of the cul-de-sac. I have nowhere to park. If you see the gravel on my property, I could pull a car up onto that and it be less in the way than being parked parallel. And I have pictures of that if you wanted to see. But I could also then park parallel to the curb on the easement between the sidewalk and the gutter and not be causing any problems in that sense. And not as a permanent parking, but only as guests coming. And
Where's
so
the
if I could
hydrant
get
on your property, I'm just curious, is it like
It's almost right on the property line.
okay, on the property line between 3473 and 3470?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the street
So
view.
if anything, if this did pass, I would love to get a concession for me specifically because of the things that have been taken from me by prior people that have passed off the building permits and the concrete being allowed in farther into my property because you guys have, it got approved that way and let go. So now I'm paying for land that I don't get to use.
And when you say you guys, you mean not
the
us,
city.
but the city, okay.
The city, yes, sorry, not
Okay, that's okay.
not you guys directly, the city, West Haven City.
I don't take it personally.
Okay, yes, I'm,
Well, the planning commission gets blamed for a lot of things.
yes, I get to talk to you guys, I don't get to talk to the other people, so. My biggest thing is just trying to see if this was to go through, that then I can get a concession for me on parking in that area. Because I'm very limited, and like I say, when wintertime comes, it's even worse because the snow gets pushed at the end of the cul-de-sac. And so if I'm not able to park on the front of my driveway from the sidewalk out and have those cars pulled in that way, now I'm sending all of my guests to the end of the street.
Okay.
And Becky, can we have specify if when he's referring to like the cul-de-sac parking, if he's referring to F under 7103?
The
Unless you
parking
understand.
perpendicular? It's to refer to the parking perpendicular is what I'm referring to.
Is what you're referring to.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
just want to make that clear.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you for your time, and thank you for being patient.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else for public hearing?
Save the best for last,
Yeah, say your name. You guys have been very patient.
My name's Josh Rivera. I'm TJ's neighbor, 3478 South, 4825 West. I'm just to the east of him. I agree with the parking. There's no room. Parking perpendicular to the curb versus parallel, where the car's pulled up out of the road, it takes up less space than if it was parked parallel to the curb. If you look and you still have the maps up, I do have an RV pad right next to my house. Him being parked perpendicular allows me to get that truck and trailer in and out of there without any issues. If that car's parallel to the curb, I do lose room. Another issue that he did state is the snow removal. When they come in and they plow, it gets piled up down there. You cannot park. I have 2 vehicles that are at my house. And if I have guests over in the winter, they do have to park down the street. Unfortunately, the road that does lead into our development in that cul-de-sac, if you park on the end of the road, it's right after you make the corner. It's a short cul-de-sac, and it's also a safety hazard. And as far as the recreational vehicles go, with snowmobile trailers, Dan, a lot of snowmobile trailers do have living quarters and a fifth wheel camper. I own one of those as well as a snowmobile trailer. They're both considered recreational. So if it's the same thing with the boat, if you get home from snowmobiling in Jackson Hole for a week, you're not gonna be able to unload a snowmobile trailer with all your gear within 24 hours. So those are just some of the issues that I have with it.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Joe Sexton. I'm also TJ's neighbor. I live just right next. I'm 3496 South. Right there. Yep, that one's mine. Pretty house.
Happy Halloween.
So the problem I got with this is if we are parallel parking, he's putting his trash cans out. The truck comes around. They got to put those trash cans a lot further out into the street. Perpendicular is a lot smarter because it gives you it takes up a lot less room for the vehicle. They can come in, they can pick up the trash cans and go. If it's paralleled, you're bringing those trash cans out a lot further, and it's causing a lot of problems. What if they come in and hit the trucks or hit your cars that are parked there? I have another problem with flatbed trailers. I have flatbed trailers. Okay, you can see I don't have a lot of driveway, but when I bring my ATV home and everything, and I unload my fifth wheel, I park my trailer on the road. I do leave it there for a little bit to unload my stuff off from that trailer. It's right in front of my house. What's the big deal? I'm not on a busy lane. I'm in a cul-de-sac. I'm nowhere near a busy road. I don't think it's fair that I cannot unhook my flatbed trailer, pull my trailer back in there, and have somebody come through and give me a ticket or tell me to move it because I don't have time to do that. This isn't right. You're taking away the rights of the people that own these houses that are trying to live and make a comfortable living by giving them all these restrictions. If you guys have flatbed trailers, you guys want to park yours out there for a little bit, you won't be within the regs. So my opinion is I think you should also give the people with recreational vehicles, flatbed trailers, any of them, a 24-hour leeway to be able to unload, get everything out. If it's a busy street, I can completely understand because then it's going to cause a lot of havoc. But we're in a cul-de-sac. This is silly. Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Come back up for a second.
Okay, keep it brief because you went over your 2 minutes, but you guys have been patient. We'll give you, I can't figure out the timer, so it's stuck at 9:57. I want to play
The
with
only
this.
thing I was going to show you was on the picture you had pulled up to show you the gravel I was referring to on my property. If that makes a difference for you
Oh,
to
say
see a
that again,
visual.
please.
On the picture we pulled up.
Okay.
Can you pull it back up, Rob? Thank you.
And then pan over to his house.
So that gravel is not mine. It's on the other side, and this picture is not updated to mine.
No,
Your house
he's
is
to the
not
right.
this one.
This is not my house, no.
Go right.
Nope.
That
That
is
is my house.
Okay.
So that's where I was going to show you an updated picture of the gravel I was speaking of. Because the curb also right there is not painted red. That curb is painted red all the way to the neighbor's house on the left and goes 3 feet into my property towards that manhole that's in my driveway. So that's why I was saying that I've lost that complete parking and even putting my trash cans there.
I don't know that that's necessarily you're losing it. That's like standard,
well,
countrywide that you can't park in front of a fire
Correct.
hydrant.
But I should not have been able to build in the sense of the city should have said something about how close the driveway was going to that. And that should have been informed to me so that I had decisions to make at the time and not letting it get past to the point of that red line is in my driveway, the entrance.
Your approach?
Yes, it is inside of my driveway. And so now, technically, I mean, I'm not allowed to park in that red zone whatsoever.
You can't park in your approach either way.
You're correct at this. And that's where my if you look at that sidewalk, how far back that is 8 feet when your city has it 4 feet everywhere else. Only in the cul-de-sac did it stretch out to 8 feet and into my property. But I was just wanting to show you the picture of the gravel on the right that I was referring to as far as pulling in perpendicular, that it brings less room or puts the car less out in the road than it does by parking parallel. That's
I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. go
Yeah,
ahead.
sure. Okay.
This isn't very updated because it has a Vanderwood for mayor sign. When was that election?
If I could get the concession to park in that area
years ago?
because of
3?
that
2?
Yeah,
2?
space.
yeah, probably 2. Oh, October 2021, so
Sorry, I didn't know how to share it on anything big.
3 years on
And you see that, I mean, and that's where he was saying his trailer coming out, he would have more room than me parking parallel to the curb.
Okay, so that's the park strip.
That, right, this is, and that's where pulling in, we try to pull in farther so that it also makes an easement for the fire trucks to get around, because that was another concern, is your emergency equipment making that turn in the cul-de-sac. By pulling into that, I have now got farther out of the way for them to get around.
Let's see.
So just how I'm on the gravel on that picture, I don't have gravel in there. And so this is where I've added the zero escape. And like I said, if I had to, I could even pull onto that between the gutter and the sidewalk and not block either, if I could have the concession to park in that park strip and not be in the road. This way, even if we do pull in, we pull in, do not block the sidewalk, but then it's less out in the street for people to get around.
Well, I would say you're partially blocking the sidewalk.
That's hard to see, but that is, if that bumper's over it, it's an inch over it, you are correct.
Just a little bit, I'm not.
Yes.
I'm not trying to be argumentative, but yeah, I just said, yeah, it's a little bit. Okay.
And so, did you see enough?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
So, Amy, just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
No, for Amy.
Oh,
Where does the property line start?
Should we go to public hearing first?
Oh,
Yeah.
Wanna,
Yeah, do you want to get out of the public hearing first?
yeah.
Is what I would.
Are you guys all? Yeah. Okay.
I make a motion to leave public hearing.
I'll second.
okay, I have a motion, a second to leave public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we're out of public hearing.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
Where does the property line start? Legally.
The line is a foot behind the sidewalk.
Okay.
That's
so,
because the right of way goes behind the sidewalk.
okay. So technically where he was parking is not his property.
That is correct, and according to state code, right now, not even us putting in F, he's in violation of the parking. Because according to 41-6A, 1402 of the Utah State Code, you don't get to park anything but parallel. So right now, that's the case. He's actually in violation of state code.
So we can't give a concession if it's state code, correct?
What was that?
We cannot give a concession or a,
Well, first of all, you can't give a specific person the authority to do what he's asking to do.
okay.
If the city wants to allow perpendicular parking in areas in the city, in that same section, 41-6A, 1402, angle parking can be allowed by city ordinance. However, that is not what we have right now. And so it's, there we are. But you can't just give one person, yeah, you can park pretty much.
Yeah, it would open up Pandora's box too.
It would, and so that's, I mean, if you don't put in F, he's still in violation. If you do put in F, he's in violation. It just.
So at that point, whose authority would he be in violation of? If we left it alone, didn't put in F, would it have to be a police officer that would have to cite him, or does it fall under city code?
Either way, I mean, if we put in F, then he could be cited under city code or state code, either one. But, and it's just an infraction. We're not talking about a class.
No, yeah, it's
B or
not
C. It's just
points
an
or
infraction.
anything.
And either one would be an infraction. So if you pass F, it would be an infraction. If you don't put in F, it's still under the Utah State Code. It's an infraction.
Yeah.
But the sheriff's department would enforce it. You know, Dan can give warnings and stuff, and then have the sheriff's department enforce it. But there's issues too with fire safety, with having that too many people in the cul-de-sac if they're parked like doing an angled parking sort of thing.
Yeah, has a propensity for fire trucks to not be able to make the turnaround or access the fire hydrant.
Exactly.
Is the big problem.
Because that cul-de-sac is designed very specifically for the radius of a fire truck to be able to make the turn, to go all the way around instead of having to do like a 300,
turn.
300 point turn.
Yeah. So speaking as someone that lives in a cul-de-sac that has similar instances with large groups of people that come over, I've never thought of, and maybe it's more or less the configuration of my driveways to my neighbors, I've never had someone attempt to park perpendicular. So this was a surprise to me. I think a little bit, if they were to do that in my driveway, it would block my neighbor's driveway. So parallel makes sense to me. I get your frustrations as a citizen as far as the parking goes, but I just don't see one way or the other. I just don't see, other than you breaking other ordinances by parking in the park strip, how the solution would be to allow the perpendicular parking. I just, coming from someone, and I sympathize, having visitors at the house and that, and you have a compound of issues with the fire hydrant and the proximity and all that stuff. I just have a hard time allowing the perpendicular. I mean, obviously the state has it in there for a reason. And I would even venture that when it talks in the state code of that cities could allow it, that it's talking more of like angled along a extra wide straight street.
It's angled, it's not perpendicular.
Okay.
Dan, can you answer a couple of questions? One of them was the 8-foot distance from the fire hydrant into their driveway. Is that, what's code? What should
on
that
this
be?
particular cul-de-sac, we worked with the fire chief. Concessions were made because of the allowed development of the property. Our code says 15 foot to each side of a fire hydrant. We went to the fire chief and said, okay, we've got this really weird situation where we've got a driveway that was permitted to be poured in close proximity to the hydrant. The fire chief came out and inspected and gave the city the option of only painting it 3 feet from the hydrant, considering that the other side would be available for connection of the hoses for the apparatuses. So it was a concession that was made based on the current condition of the development of that lot. So it does require, if they have to access both sides of the hydrant, that 3 foot is like the minimum that they would use, and they would use a smaller radius hose on that and not a standard radius hose. And so, as it pertains to just this one in particular, because this hydrant is placed, as I discussed this with Mr. Cooper, this hydrant was placed in a very peculiar place in this cul-de-sac, not in a traditional place. And so it is something that was put in by the developer, agreed on by the city. And so we did make some concessions on that, the painting as far as it goes into the approach of Mr. Cooper's property.
Okay, then my next questions, or question really, I think it covers all of them, is the trailers, like flatbed, snowmobile, recreation vehicle. Was there a reason for not allowing them a 24-hour time period to load and unload those?
There's not. The ordinance was just that way. And in most cases, some of the flatbed trailers we see are actually being stored. They're not coming back for anything. People are just saying, hey, I haven't got enough space on my property, I'm going to put this out there. So, and let me tell you that typically I don't cite anybody initially. I give people warnings and make them aware of the city ordinance that says it's not permitted to be there. And I've not cited anyone to date. And I haven't towed anything to date, because I've always been able to get agreement with whoever owns the trailer to get it moved. We see obviously the biggest issue with snowplow. I have to hit the city pretty hard before storms coming in to see if I can get as many of those off the street so that the plows can work effectively.
That trumps even the 24-hour rule, right? Between October to March, you can't park anything, even a car on the street, correct?
Well, it actually says that's the restricted parking, but it states that you can't park on the street 24 or an imminent storm or 24 hours after, so the city has a chance to clean it. So it gives you the window of when it's restricted based on the snowstorm.
Okay.
To your enforcement
thing,
this is primarily complaint driven, correct?
It's not. About 30-35% of my cases are based on complaints. The balance of it was a directive from the legislative body.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to see it that you get any, I don't know, and it falls to you, but would it be a horrible idea to do up to 24 hours on just all trailers? Because I've been in a situation myself where I'm shuffling trailers around and I move one out to the front of my house and drop it and pull out another one and put one back, and how do I stay in compliance?
My research that I've done on both trailer parking and then like motorhomes, camp trailers and stuff, most cities don't allow trailers to be parked on the road. Detached trailers, we're talking about detached trailers. If we have someone that's using a trailer for work and they're pulling it up in front and then they're hauling it away, that's attached to a vehicle, and if as long as it's moving, I'm okay. If I see that it stays there and I have a way to identify if it's just parked there, stored there, and then I do the enforcement. Most cities, Layton being one of those, it's just no, period, not on the street. And that pertains to any type of trailer, boat, RV, camp trailer, anything. They restrict everything on their streets. And so it's a universal type enforcement policy, but not necessarily that we can't look at 24 hours.
My next question, I guess, would have to relate to Jeff's when he talked about complaints. How often do you get my neighbor's parked a trailer out in front of his house for 24 hours?
I get on average 2 a week.
Okay.
So if you look at my case log, you'll see that I have a lot of, between cars and trailers, I'll get 2 a week. So some are cases that, you know, I do have to go sticker. Others, because I'm aware of who the owner is, I'm able to get them moved without
Is it
incident.
often that there's repeat offenders? I don't even want to.
No.
People that you have to go see frequently.
It's a good question, and typically when we have a home occupation where they have trailers that are part of their business, those are our repeat offenders. Anybody that's just a regular resident that uses it for any other purpose, it's typically a one time, and they come in compliance. Or if they know that they're going to have an issue, they'll call in advance and get an exception from me to be able to leave it there. That way I'm aware of it, so if I get complaints, I can let them know, yes, we've given them some extra time based on, for instance, somebody's pouring a cement pad on the side of their house, and they have to move the trailer out on the road while they're pouring the cement pad. Well, obviously, they're going to put it back there, so we're going to go ahead and allow them to put it there. But nobody does that in wintertime, so that's always helpful. So.
I would assume too that you get constant complainers. People that, yeah, I know.
Repeat complainers.
You don't have to wave, I see it.
I'm not bringing up any particular case. I won't discuss any particular case.
No, I'm not asking you
okay.
to, but can I assume that you do get some that complain with great frequency? How's that?
Well, I could say that for a lot of things. So the answer would be yes, but not specific to trailers, so.
You brought up, Layton City is a no-go for trailer parking. I used to live in Layton City before West Haven, and I moved to West Haven because I lived in Layton City. We'll just leave it at that. Like, I honestly, I struggle. I have zero qualms with putting a 24-hour thing on all trailers. I just, in the rural area that we are in, it could be 100 different types of things that you could put out there that.
Well, one thing to take into consideration, Commissioner Hepworth, is that all of our roads are not born equal.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we look in some of these areas like the Salt Points where they've got the narrower roads, it becomes a little bit of an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Even 24 hours is a bottleneck, which is a problem, right? And so when we look at this, it's kind of got to be all inclusive and take into consideration
with the same brush.
Every width of road and every configuration. We have roads with that are soft shoulders. We have roads that have sidewalk. We have roads that have park strips and sidewalks. And so as we look at that, we have to just take into consideration widths and configurations and make sure that we're making the ordinance so it fits all configurations.
So, to my own point, which is kind of weird.
Not weird.
Not really.
Not weird.
Not really.
It is, well, no, you're used to me already. You don't do selective enforcement. If you get a complaint, you have to respond to it, do you not?
Yes, thank you, Jeff. I am a complaint-based officer, other than what I'm being appointed to enforce based on legislative body. And so if I have a complaint, I have to investigate the complaint. If it's in violation, I have to resolve it. Now, by means of doing that, obviously it's different based on case by case. But every complaint I get, yes, I have to follow up. I have to investigate for violation and then take action on it.
Right. So basically, no matter what law we recommend to the city council, you're going to have to enforce it universally. So you're not going to be able to give people exceptions, correct? Unless, of course, the law
only
is
it's on the
written
case
with
of their
exceptions.
right. If they're calling saying, "Hey, I need to move it so I can pour a driveway or something," I certainly can. That type of exception, but not.
I know you don't want it, but I'm sorry. It's the way it works, sir. Not you, Dan. The guy waving at me.
Yeah.
I mean,
So you haven't called me sir in a long time, Jeff. I'm okay.
Effective though, where you've you live in
Yeah,
a similar,
it-
like it's kind of the nature of
And
a
if we want to
cul-de-sac.
go as far as to say any trailer for the purpose of loading or unloading, because all my trailers carry something that I have to load or unload on. And whether or not I'm using that recreationally or for my business or for personal use, I'm still loading or unloading or repositioning the trailer. Now, do I leave it out front endlessly? No, I'm fortunate enough I have space to store all those things, but there is many times I'm pulling and playing a shuffle game of trailers and I don't know. I that's my thing. It's never been an issue because I'm not leaving it out there for 24 hours. But I can see in certain circumstances where that's, you know, it can happen. And
Right.
I'm more of, or less of the less government in our lives type stance. I see when it comes to safety trumps all.
Well, and-
Fire trucks trump all.
Yeah, and that's the thing I want to make sure that we focus on, is that we're not talking about creating problems for citizens. We're looking at road safety, community safety, and, you know, what really creates that. You know, if we're restricting the garbage collection, that creates a hazard. We restrict fire apparatus to be able to make a proper turn. Obviously, that creates another hazard. So when we're looking at these, we're really looking at road safety, community safety. When we do
To
this.
that point, and maybe this is just the devil's advocate in me, is what's the difference between a trailer and a vehicle being parked in a cul-de-sac or on the street? I mean, navigating around a vehicle or
Right.
navigating around a trailer is the same thing for a fire truck.
And it's like comparing a 350 to a Pinto. We have all sizes, right? And so how do you classify? Well, if you have a trailer that's only 5 foot wide, it can be there. But if it's more than 5 foot, well, obviously that puts a lot more responsibility on code enforcement, saying now I got to go out there and measure it. So it's a all or nothing, right? It's either this trailer, and we know that cars, and if everybody is parking on the street as it's intended, meaning that it's a convenience. It's not a place to store. It's a place to just park for convenience. That car is moving a lot.
And that's where I'd like to see this ordinance go, that it's not a permanent, but a convenient spot to move trailers to.
Correct. And I'm not advocating for anything, I'm just giving you some information. So
That's just me personally,
whatever you guys
in
decide.
what I see.
Absolutely.
I think the parallel parking, or sorry, the perpendicular parking and parking on the curb or sidewalk is a little bit harder to really do anything about especially if there's a state ordinance, because, say hypothetically speaking, somebody was complaining about it.
Several.
There
not just one,
is a
but several,
layer that is above the city that it has to be enforced. The trailer's a little bit easier to work with. I agree. A trailer can be out on the road for 24 hours. It's not going to bother anybody. I have neighbors that have trailers that have RVs, and they park it on the road for 24 hours, sometimes 48, but they put it back in and it's fine. There are no issues. So I think very few people will have any issues with that, especially in the city that we live in, where people like to have their toys and their campers and all that. They understand where they're coming from. It's the people that don't have them that don't understand. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the issue. So,
Would you guys entertain more than 24 hours? Or
Yes.
is that? I think I agree with that too.
yeah.
Not that I have any say, I guess, but.
So
It all boils down to Dan. I mean, we're making these ordinances and he's enforcing it. Not to say that Dan has the say, but I would be curious, mostly just out of how you say you've never had anyone towed, you've never had anyone cited. It's obviously not an epidemic of trailers everywhere. It's and when it is, I would bet money that you probably get more when it comes to the trailer parking. It's more complaint based than you driving around finding it. Maybe I'm wrong, specifically to the trailer thing.
Right, and interesting enough on that, if I get one complaint about one trailer on the road, I have to do all the trailers on the road. I can't single anybody out, right?
It's an unbiased.
So, but part of that discovery that has been, given to me by the legislative body is that we want to make sure we keep our streets safe. And if you're in an area where you see a safety hazard, meaning a trailer on the road, then we want you to put a notice on there and make people aware that it needs to be removed from the road. So I don't intentionally drive around looking for trailers in neighborhoods. Yeah. I stumble on them when I'm working in that area. I do a couple of things for the city, and so other responsibilities take me into neighborhoods. And so I just leave a little sticker on there that says, you can't leave it here. It's in violation of city ordinance, and I come back within, and know that, my time is spread out, and so sometimes I get back the next day, sometimes it's the day after. But 90% of the time, it's gone.
Do we know, Alika, do we know where the city council stands on this?
Not yet. No, we don't know.
What would it be something that we could table this and maybe even have a working session with the city council?
Yeah, we can do that.
Because I think that we would just be going around in circles. If we suggest 72, then they come back and say no, or they.
I mean, at the end of the day, they have the final say anyway.
Agreed. But I think that there could be some, just like in this discussion here, I think there could be some productivity brought up between the council and the planning commission, knowing they have the final say, but also that there is some justification in having an allowable time for a trailer.
I would like to see it universal, whatever we pick. I don't like that you have to pick, define, is it a boat? Is it a trailer? Is it a snowmobile trailer? Is it a camp trailer? Is it, I do agree. The 24 hours to unload seems pretty feasible. Sometimes maybe that isn't enough time, but where you haven't had, to go around and make people put stuff, put their trailer away or anything like that. I think it also gives you a little bit of an extra window. That you don't have to give allowances maybe if it's been out there 24 hours. It gives you a little bit more reason that you can just enforce instead of having to give somebody maybe an exception. But it also, I just feel like the uniformity would be better for our community for just what people do. Like between some people like toys, some people like camping. And I feel like if we try and differentiate that, that's an issue. That's an issue with our community. I would be okay going forward with a 24-hour, 24-hour limit on that. But if you guys aren't, then we could go to
on everything, just
for all of it.
But if not, then we can just table it and discuss it again. But those are just my thoughts. That's kind of where I'm sitting at right now.
Would you be okay with 48?
I'm concerned about 48, but I can see the wisdom of it. Like I can see why people want it, but I would prefer to have, I think about kids walking to the bus and coming home and people pulling out of their driveways. That's the biggest concern, even for the 24 hours.
Right.
Like that's the biggest safety concern is like that.
And back to the size of trailers, I can't tell you specific numbers, but sometimes people bring them home and they push their slide outs out. And so the slide out that goes out into the road, all of a sudden you're pushing kids that are on bikes. They don't ride on sidewalks anymore.
That's
I would think
that's just a no altogether.
So when we're looking at widths of trailers and what it forces kids on bikes to do, I mean, that's the safety concern.
So
Is
that's
getting
why
them
I
off the
would
road
stick
in a timely
24.
manner so that we don't create that safety issue.
But I'm not going to fight that.
I think this warrants a lot more discussion. Do you all agree?
Yeah, I feel like this needs to be tabled. I don't know that we can make a decision right now.
Yeah.
All right. I'm sorry, we're out of public hearing, but we can talk after.
Yep.
Yeah. But I think if we table it, and then you are welcome to email us, email Amy, so you can bring it to us before we have our next discussion.
With it being tabled, there'll be another opportunity.
There won't be another public
There won't be
hearing.
another public
another
hearing.
public, okay.
No,
All right.
no. It's just discussion item now.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that they can't speak to staff or send in anything. Give us something to discuss.
Can they, if we have a work session and they come, can they comment in the work session or
I would,
no?
they can come.
They can come
They
listen.
can come listen,
But
but
not
yeah,
participate.
I just don't know
Right.
if they could, yeah, okay.
But could still send comments to
Yeah,
everyone.
so any comments you can just send via email or have a discussion with staff or, yeah. Anyone.
And I think, and
Yeah.
that's really a good way to kind of look, because then we have time to read through it, your comments before our work session, and we can do a little research and try to understand. So I think that's a formative way to get your information to us.
Probably a good idea to copy the city council on that as well, so that all of us are getting the information, because eventually they're gonna be the decision makers.
Yeah, they make the final decision.
I just work here.
Did you guys hear that? If you send it to Emily Green, she'll disperse it to all council and planning commission.
And thank you guys for coming. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
We hope you
It's
feel heard.
for waiting
Yeah.
until the
Yeah, and
very
waiting till the
last
end.
item.
Yeah.
Guys, appreciate your support.
Yeah.
Thank you.
bet.
I'll make a motion to table item 17.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and 2 seconds to
2
table
seconds.
item number 17. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item is tabled. Before we go to 18, I just want to publicly recognize Alika and thank her for her service. And she's led us through a lot of changes and a lot of difficulty, and you've handled it with grace and professionalism, and we really appreciate you. So big shoes to fill.
You will be missed. Thank you so
Very
much.
much so.
We appreciate it.
So
Everything
much.
you've
She
done.
is not leaving, however.
All in
She is-
favor?
Oh, we might, yeah.
She-
So
she's
do you
still
mind-
going to be
I'm
part of the
still a resident.
beautification.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll help out wherever I can, but it's goodness, I'm gonna cry. I love the city so much, and it's been an honor to be part of it. And you guys have been so great, even while you're learning along the way. And you've given me so much to think about and to consider. And not once have I felt disrespected, even if you pose an opposing view, you know. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, with that, agenda item
To adjourn.
18.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Or adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Better than I thought. I thought it did so.